Jai Prabhuji. I am Swami Durgananda. I am disciple of Prabhuji for 27 years, since 1996 when I was initiated. Welcome to the course about the book Experimenting with the Truth, written by Prabhuji, that we are going to delve into in the following classes. Today will be our introduction class. How can I improve my relationships with others? Why does my mind resist meditating? Was your enlightenment a result of your practices? On what authority do you base your teachings? What do you mean by freedom? So these are a few questions that can give us some taste, some idea about the questions that are dealt with in this book, Experimenting with the Truth, and that we are going to inquire into them in this course. In this course, we will review the answers that Prabhuji gives to this and other such questions, and also attempt to penetrate into the vision of the retroprogressive yoga. So as we said, today is our introduction class, and in today's class we are going to do three things. The first thing is that we will say a few words about the book and about the course. Then we are going to read a part from Prabhuji's poetic biography, as we call it, which is also the introduction to this book and also to other books. We will just read the very beginning of it, where Prabhuji introduces himself and tells us what this teaching is all about. And it is going to give us a very good viewpoint into the book. And the third thing that we are going to do in today's class is that we will look at the retroprogressive yoga, the meaning of it in Prabhuji's own words. The retroprogressive yoga is the name that Prabhuji gives to his vision, you can say his vision in life, that is naturally, of course, expressed in all his books and all his lectures. And to understand it, what is the retroprogressive yoga, is a rather lofty task that I myself do not claim to achieve. And to the best of my knowledge, none of the teachers in this institute claim to achieve this task. But this course and also other courses in this institute are an attempt to penetrate at least a little bit into the meaning of the retroprogressive yoga. So this book, Experimenting with the Truth, we showed it, we will show it again. This is a copy of this book. We can say that it's one of the results, among other results, of the long path that Prabhuji had in his life, beginning at a very young age, a childhood, when he had a mystical experience, a very profound experience that impacted the entire course of his life. So Prabhuji, when he was a very young boy, 8 years old, he had a significant experience, following which he started to search. And he searched in different books and in different places and in different cultures and in different religions and in different philosophies, met with different personalities. And all this long path of 30 years constituted his, we can say, spiritual quest, when he asked himself many questions and investigated many topics. And many of the questions that Prabhuji asked himself are questions that audience will ask him later on in his life. And such questions are compiled in this book, Experimenting with the Truth, together with Prabhuji's own contemplation about them, of course, investigation, knowledge, understanding, and also direct experience. The name of the book, as we can see, is not Teaching the Truth or Presenting the Truth, but it's simply Prabhuji's Experimenting with the Truth. This is all that it is. And what it is also can be is an invitation to relate to the truth in the same manner, which means not as followers or as believers, but as experimenters. It is most recommended to get a copy of the book to accompany you in this course, in this study, and to develop your own personal dialogue with the pages, with the book, intimate relationship, in addition to the reading that, of course, we are going to do as we discuss the text of the course, of the book in the course. In general, the retroprogressive yoga, in my opinion, very much direct us to an individual journey. because these teachings recognize all of us as different individuals. So our path will naturally look different from one another. And necessarily it will direct us to develop our own individual path in our own pace, with our own understanding, with our own questions, and with our own answers sometimes. The course will constitute, of course, Prabhuji's words. This is the subject matter. It will also include my interpretations about these words. And we will also support the ideas that are discussed with knowledge that can help us understand the context and understand the principles that are conveyed in the words of Prabhuji. Of course, our primary mission is to delve into Prabhuji's words, that, as I said, it is not an easy task. And the primary reason that it is not an easy task is that because they come out of a view of reality, out of an experience of reality that we might not experience. And I'm saying the primary reason that that it is difficult, that it is a difficult task, is this, because there could be also other reasons, such as that we might lack knowledge, such as that we might need to make an intellectual effort in order to understand the principles. But regarding these two, there is an effort that we can make. There is something that we can do. And this is what we will try to do in this course. Try to, as we said, support with knowledge that can assist us understand the context and the ideas, and also try to analyze the principles together intellectually. But regarding the primary reason, which is the fact that these words come from an experience that we might not have, there is nothing that we can do except for recognizing this fact. In Advaita Vedanta book, Prabhuji says, the Jivan Mukta, or the being liberated while still in the physical body, lives in union with the Absolute. It is important to keep in mind that any description of the Absolute happens on the dual platform. Therefore, the means of description are from the relative plane, which obviously distorts a faithful description of direct experience. While words can point to the truth, we must always remember that they cannot describe reality itself. So here in these words we understand that the truth can never be described, can never be explained, can never be put in any word. Therefore, any word can only direct to it, but it can never really describe it authentically, because the description will always be distorted, because it happens on the relative plane and not on the absolute plane. Only on the absolute plane we can understand the absolute. There is no way that the relative will perceive the absolute. So the transcendental experience will always remain transcendental to the words. Recently, Prabhuji shared with us words of Ludwig Wittgenstein, who said, whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent. So now let's take a look at Prabhuji's poetic biography. We are reading the very opening of this biography, which, as we said, is also the introduction of this book and of other books of Prabhuji, which means that we can take it as a disclaimer maybe to the audience before we get in touch with the content of the book. So let's read. The story of my life is nothing more than a long journey from what I believe myself to be to what I truly am. It is a tale of transcending the personal and the universal, the partial and the total, the illusory and the real, the apparent and the true. My life is a flight beyond the temporal and the eternal, darkness and light, the human and the divine. This story is not public, but profoundly private and intimate. So in a way what Prabhuji tells us here is that this is not a biography. It's not a resume. It's not one's credentials. It's just my story. It's a personal adventure maybe. And we see it in this paragraph, both in the beginning when he says the story of my life. Immediately we get the notion that this is something very personal. When he uses the word long journey, we see here some kind of a poetic expression of a personal experience again. And in the end of this paragraph, very explicitly and even more clearly, this story is not public, but extremely private and intimate. And if we look at Prabhuji's official biography that was written about Prabhuji and not by Prabhuji in first person, this one that we are reviewing now, we will see a totally different biography, one that will include many personalities, teachers, fields of mastery, titles, books, etc. And here Prabhuji talks about the very same biography, but just from a different angle, from a personal angle. And he says all this same biography, is just a personal story. And the principle, in my opinion, that is conveyed here in these words is that this story will always remain private and intimate, because in essence it's private and intimate. So regardless of how much public will come in touch with it at this point of time or another, we need to understand that this is an intimate experience. It's not something public that meant to be shared with the public. It might be exposed to the public, but the intention of it is completely individual, personal, and intimate. So what is this long journey that Prabhuji talks about? He says, it is a long journey from what I believed myself to be to what I truly am. We see here 2 points of this long journey, the point of origin and the point of destination where he arrives. The origin point is from what I believed myself to be. Clearly we see here a notion of a false belief. It's a belief, and it's a belief of the past, meaning I no longer believe this. And the destination point, we see here knowing. So this past culminates, this long journey culminates in what I truly am. And in a way, what we see in this long journey, the essence of this long journey is not a movement from one place to a different place, or from one point in time to a different point in time. But we see here a shift in consciousness from what I believe myself to be to what I truly am. All the change, all this long journey is simply shift in consciousness. And yet, at the same time, clearly the words long journey indicate the long path that we spoke about of 30 years of search in time and in place that Prabhuji walked all his life. But the culmination of it, which is the realization, which is the shift in consciousness, give it all the meaning of what it was. Of all the 30 years, they receive this ultimate meaning, which is just shift in consciousness. So we see here the 2 levels, we can say, in the same sentence. The relative plane, the long journey in time and place, and the shift in consciousness, which is not in time and place. So when Prabhuji says, it is a long journey from what I believe myself to be to what I truly am, he includes both platforms. And in the heart of this paragraph, Prabhuji tells us some more about his life story. It is a tale of transcending the personal and the universal, the partial and the total, the illusory and the real, the apparent and the true. My life is a flight beyond the temporal and the eternal, darkness and light, the human and the divine. And this is a very good example to what we spoke about earlier, that there are certain words that are impossible to grasp with the mind and the intellect. What can be beyond illusory and real? beyond darkness and light, beyond the human and the divine. There's nothing that we can say about these words, or understand about these words, or think about these words. We can only possibly touch something in the level of experience. Prabhuji says, it is a process of involutionary character because as we move forward, we get closer to the originary and primary. This message of retroevolution or involutionary advancement speaks of returning to the source, getting closer to where we really are, of returning to what we truly are and going back to what it is impossible to abandon. This yoga is a march toward the here and now. As this Hebrew blessing indicates, Baruch Ata Hashem, Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. Blessed are you, O Lord, our God, King of the universe, who has granted us life, sustained us, and enabled us to reach this occasion. So we see here a few very interesting words, such as retroevolution, involutionary, and of course retroprogressive itself. Words that include in one word two opposite directions, different directions, right? Retro, progressive. Retro, evolution. Involutionary, which means inside or inward, evolutionary, together. And not just we see two simultaneous directions, but also where these two simultaneous directions direct us to, where is this movement going to where we truly are, Prabhuji tells us, to who we really are currently, to a place that it is impossible to abandon, to the originary and the primary, what is the most originary and primary in us. So in a way, what Prabhuji tells us here is that this path does not encourage us to add something, or to change something, or to improve in something, or to get rid of something, or to invent something, right? Or to create something. No. Only to recognize what currently is. How? By going backward, which is our advancement in this path. In many places, Prabhuji mentions the fact that we came into this world without many of the possessions that currently we have. And we don't only speak about physical possession or monetary possession, but about mental possession, emotional possession, psychological possession, intellectual possession, ideological possession, right? Intellectual possession, not sure if I mentioned. So many things that we accumulated from the outside world as we walk on our path in this lifetime are not our essence, are not our originary and primary place. We didn't come with them. It's not who we really are in essence. It's things that we attributed to ourselves along the years. So in a way, in order to recognize what is essential in us, we need to go backward. Before we added all these ideas and all kind of gifts that we received from family and friends and teachers and society, right? We need to go backward and recognize what is underneath all that. Prabhuji says we are going to the originary and primary and to a place, quote unquote, that it is impossible to abandon. Even if we want to abandon it, we cannot. Means he speaks about the place that we are always at, that doesn't leave us, that there is nothing that we can do to leave this place. So of course there's nothing we should do to be in this place, because we cannot abandon it. And he speaks about a place that is here and it is now. Similar, of course, to impossible to abandon, which means no matter when we hear these words, it is now. And no matter where we hear these words, it is here. And even if we don't hear these words, it's still independent of anything that can happen, because this place always existing. So this path talks about clearly something that we all experience all the time, whether we are aware of it or not, whether we make an effort or not, regardless of any effort that we do or do not do, regardless of anything at all. We cannot abandon this place. It means we always experience it, and all that we need to do, quote unquote, is to recognize something. What is this thing that Prabhuji talks about? That it's always with us, no matter what we do, no matter how we feel, no matter what is our state of mind, no matter what activity we are engaged in, regardless of how much we are active or passive or quiet or hectic or attentive or dull, this place exists with us always. We just need to figure it out. So the retroprogressive yoga necessarily does not require any preliminary conditions, because all it directs us is to observation, like a scientist. All that it speaks about is seeing. And in order to see, we need to look. And in order to look, we need not to prefer anything that will come out of the experience. It does not matter if we see anger, if we see happiness, if we see nobility, if we see cruelty, if we see jealousy, if we see egoism. All of these are qualified, and most likely we are all going to find all the array of human emotions and experiences, because we are all human. But this experimenting speaks about observing whatever there is. Right? There is a book of Prabhuji that is called What Is As It Is, which very much conveys the essence of his approach in everything, the essence of the retroprogressive yoga. So it does not require us to be in a certain religion or in a certain path, or to have a certain type of knowledge or amount of knowledge or seniority in some path or in the retroprogressive yoga path. Also, this is also irrelevant, the seniority. How much we know Prabhuji's books, also irrelevant. Because it just talks about looking at this moment openly, objectively, honestly, with intention, with enthusiasm, with curiosity, with the desire to recognize. It also doesn't speak about any experience that needs to happen. This is totally irrelevant to the retroprogressive yoga, because it does not speak about the apparent experiences in time that start and end, no matter how mystical and beautiful and spiritual in our eyes they may be. They are experiencing. And what the retroprogressive yoga is focused on is the essence that is observing all the experiences. Prabhuji said this is a place that it is impossible to abandon. And we concluded it means we experience it all the time. So we need a place that is observing all the apparent experiences. This is where the retroprogressive yoga focuses, at the observation itself. And in a way, this path is not a new path. Because what we are observing here is ourselves and life. And this is what we did since we remember ourselves, and some say even before we were with life, with ourselves in some sense maybe. For us currently it's just knowledge. But let's say from when we remember ourselves, this is enough. We are with ourselves and with life. We are experimenting, we are observing, we are analyzing, we are experiencing, we are questioning in this way or another, in this extent or another. Maybe what the retroprogressive yoga does is emphasizing or increasing the intensity of this experiment, of observing, of observation. So in a way, Prabhuji is not the investigator here in this path. We are the investigators. And he is also not the subject matter. He's not the materials that we are inquiring into. Prabhuji is also not the question or the topic that we are investigating. But maybe what he is very good laboratory conditions that encourage us to perform more and more experimenting with the truth. Jai Prabhuji.